a guy over at the Daily Wire. His name is Andrew Klavan. Now, he has a little clip on the channel. I guess he has his own show on the Daily Wire. The Daily Wire has multiple people on there. There's Ben Shapiro, there's Andrew Klavan, there's the Daily Wire third stringer, and then there's some guy named Matt Walsh. He's a kind of an odd fella, to say the least. Now, this is something super interesting, okay? This is, well, I'm not going to say super interesting. I'm going to say somewhat interesting. So this video is entitled, Why the Left Now Loves Big Business. And he's going to start to get into talking about corporations and talking about whether or not they should have the power to basically ban people, where, you know, what happened to Jones, where all of the companies, basically all the tech giants, basically almost simultaneously, unanimously just banned him. You know, Spotify did it, then everywhere else did it. YouTube did it. Twitter was the last one standing, and for some reason, Alex went and badgered Jack, and all of a sudden he was off of Twitter. I don't know why he did that. That was a really dumb idea. Like, he's the one guy who's left you on there, and you're going to decide that it's a good idea to go and try to, like, badger and troll him. It doesn't even seem to pass the common sense test. But this is going to be something kind of interesting, because he's attempting to point out the hypocrisy of the left wing on big business, as he puts it, big business, but doesn't realize that he's pointing himself out to be a massive hypocrite, and it's going to be somewhat interesting, but mostly pretty bad. But go ahead and check it out.
Why is it the left used to understand? The left used to understand that corporations are power centers and therefore prone to abuse their power. The left used to be all about this. Not so long ago, remember when the Occupy movement was dumping litter all over the streets of America? They were sitting there going, the evil corporations. We used to laugh at them because they were on their iPhones, using Google to send text messages. All these things that they were using came from corporations. And of course, corporations are wonderful. There's nothing inherently wrong with corporations. There's something inherently wrong with great concentrations of power, something inherently corrupting with great concentrations of power. As Lord Acton, the great historian of freedom, said, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And I was thinking, why did the left forget this? Now, of course, the answer occurred to me after the show, and that's why I wanted to come back to it, that we shifted from a manufacturing economy to an information economy. In the old days, corporations used to be more right-wing. Why? Because a manufacturing economy is about objects and selling objects, and right-wing conservative principles apply, right? You can make a car and you can sell it on TV by draping a half-naked woman across it, and I hope you do. But once I buy the car, if it breaks down, I'm going to dump the half-naked woman by the side of the road and go trade in the car and get a better one. I'm going to buy it from somebody else. So one of the reasons that Detroit fell apart and the American car industry fell apart was because it was so wealthy it thought it could just give everything to the unions, and the unions thought they could just take everything, and ultimately the conservative principles destroyed that manufacturing center. And manufacturing, anytime you make a product, it's got to be a good product. You got to hold to basic conservative principles. Competition is important. Competition makes your product better. All these things that we talk about in capitalism, all of them help you when you're a manufacturer. Information is inherently an emotional industry. You can say, well, information is all about numbers and all about fact, but which information do you turn to first? Do you turn to the thing with all the 17% of this and 87% of that? Or do you turn to somebody, destroying the left and the outrageous thing that somebody on the left said? Information is all about emotionalism, and so is leftism. Leftism is about getting people to panic so that they surrender power to you. Now, it's important to remember, as right-wingers, it's important to remember here, the problem is the concentration of power. It's not the philosophy. The concentration of power affects all people the same. This is the thing. People are not good or bad. In every movement, there are good and bad people. In every movement, there are people whose intentions are good. And in every movement, there are people who are good. I mean, obviously, there are movements that are so inherently evil that no good person would join them. But in most movements, there are people who are decent. But power, all of those people are going to go over a range of morality, and all of them are corruptible by power. And so that is why our founders said, we are going to put the power centers off each other. And that is why these things like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube which are monopolies, essentially, monopolies of information, are getting out of control and are starting to abuse their power. These are big corporations silencing people, individual people, deeming their opinions hateful. That's just a decree, right? That's not an actual description of anything. That is just a decree from a very powerful person, Tim Cook, in his, fantastic corporation of Apple. It's just him decreeing that those voices of individuals will be crushed by his corporation, will be silenced by his corporation. And I think that we should definitely look at the way these things are governed. If they're governed as platforms, they should have to let everybody speak because they can't be sued. They're getting a benefit from this.
So I actually reject the premise that the left loves big business just because I don't really think that there's any evidence to prove that. Whenever we're talking about, because what he alludes to towards the end of that segment is he says, he talks about the tech giants. That's his example and his explanation for and his citation for the left loving big business. But it's not, there's no love for big business there. In fact, the thing is we're going by your own argumentation. So this is what I mean by he proves himself to be a massive hypocrite in the process. Now, he says that, the left is hypocritical because now they love big business, which I disagree with the premise. But we're actually just going by what you said. You said, and conservatives have been saying this for the longest time, a private business can do what they want, right? They can do what they want. They should not be subject to any government regulation except for some bare bones. But, the whole cake thing that's been going on and everything like that, the idea, and this is what has been proposed by the right wing for the longest time now, is a private business can do whatever they please. And so stop attempting to use the government to in some way instate some sort of regulation against it, because it's a private business. They're able to do whatever they want. So while pretending as if the left wing loves big business, which they don't, he's not realizing that, holy smokes, I'm the one who's being hypocritical here, because we're just going by your rules on that. And I actually think that private businesses can do whatever they want, except for in cases of arbitrary characteristics, and that includes race, gender, etc. Outside of that, a private business can do what they want. So, for example, when Twitter bans someone, that's if they find you in violation of their terms of service, which there's no doubt they purposely make it super vague just so they can basically ban anybody when they want to. But yeah, they're able to do that. That's the way that they're able to do it. Same thing with if the NFL wants to do something to Cap or not allow Cap to kneel or whatever like that, right? Like, they have the right to do that as a private business. I would argue you shouldn't do that. I try to be as consistent as possible, and I think I am. Again, there's the one exception of arbitrary characteristics, which are race, gender. Those are things you can't control. Those are things that, you see most of the time, you can't hide your race and things like that. And so I think that the people have to be protected from that. But outside of that, outside of those arbitrary characteristics, I do think a private business can do pretty much whatever they want. And so this was similar to the time when PragerU sued YouTube on grounds that they're being politically discriminated against, when that's just utterly false. Because remember, Secular Talk and David Pakman's show were put on a blacklist, dude. Like, the adpocalypse hit everybody, and they were pretending as if they were being politically discriminated, which is just totally fallacious, just totally wrong, just ridiculous. And so when a private business does something against you, now all of a sudden the government needs it. Now all of a sudden you sue. What? How are you going to do that? It doesn't make sense. And the left doesn't love big business. Now, there is a huge problem in terms of the politicians on the left who are entirely corrupt and bought out by big business. But don't try and act like the Republican Party aren't the TFGs when it comes to corruption, because they absolutely are. The Republicans are worse. At least the Democrats try to hide it, and they're not as sold out as Republicans are, but they are very, very sold out. Trust me. And I'm the first one to critique them. As you guys know, I'm not a very big fan of the Democrats, period. But to pretend as if the left now as a whole loves big business, like, what do you where does that come from? I don't understand. Like, the left is for unions, and it's not pro big business in any way. We want a living wage in every state. We want Medicare for all, etc., etc. That does not make us lovers of big business and in turn make us hypocrites in any way. it just, we are, and here's the concluding point that I want to make. There's a genuine discussion now about whether or not companies like Twitter and other things like that should be treated as public utilities, because certain things like water and different things like that, you can't just let the free market deal with that, because those are necessities for the public. People need water to survive. So people are starting to think, and I don't know. I mean, I'm genuinely curious to know what your guys' thoughts on that are. I think that Kyle Kulinski thinks that they should be public utilities. And I think some people on the right are now saying that they should be regulated like public utilities. I don't know if that's what Andrew Klavan thinks or not. I wish he would have said. That would have been nice. It seems like it. He seems like he's alluding to it, or he's leading to that. He didn't say it, though, but that's what it seemed like to me. But there's a genuine conversation and debate to be had there. I think Ben Shapiro is against that, but it is a serious issue, though, in terms of, dude, if you get shadow banned, not shadow banned, just banned from everywhere, that's like you're almost erasing someone's existence online. So when you see something like all of the different tech giants at the same time banning you, that's a big problem, dude. That's a huge. You can have your entire livelihood just smashed through the window like that. It's insanity. It is absolutely insane. So that's a debate worth having. But just remember, right wingers, that's not something that you advocated for, man. You are not supposed to be for regulation. You're supposed to be about private business, going about private business. You're not supposed to be about in any way of some sort, regulation. So you're the hypocrite here. That's just the truth.